Sexual and gender-based violence is a topic that, while some are always spotlighting, still isn't being discussed enough. Everyday men, women, girls, boys, and babies are sexually abused. And unfortunately, only a small percentage of cases are brought to the forefront. And in the case of the men or the male child, the percentage is even lower. So whilst it's sometimes hard to know that someone is being abused, we can still do more to prevent some of these cases. Sometimes it takes being more aware, vigilant, sensitive, and cautious. In Nigeria, there are non-government and government support organizations working assiduously to help the victims, but they can't do it alone. You and I need to be a part of the solution, in whatever shape or form we can. One of such organizations is Women at Risk International Foundation, known as WARIF. And with me today is Chinemerem Wealth, a sexual health and gender-based violence educator who currently serves as the project manager and community service lead at WARIF. Chinemerem coordinates and facilitates sexual and gender-based violence prevention and intervention programs in rural communities within and outside Lagos State, Nigeria. And she's also a certified girl, child, and human rights advocate. Welcome, Chinemerem. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Good morning.
I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Chinemerem.
Chinemerem, short form
Chichi.
Chichi.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I can say Chichi.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So the assumption is we all know that sexual and gender-based violence, the assumption is we know what it is, but please, in your own words, can you explain it to us a bit more?
Okay, thank you. So sexual and gender-based violence is any form of abuse that is carried out on an individual. It's sexual in nature. It is usually either forced, coerced, through manipulation or domineering the individual. It is mostly done without the individual's consent. So the key word there is consent. So if you use a verbal word sexually against an individual, I didn't ask for it. It's a form of sexual harassment. It is verbal in nature.
What do you mean by a verbal word?
Okay, so I'm walking down the street and the guy says, "Oh, your breast looks perky in that dress." Or he says, "Oh, look at your ass. It looks like a Manchester or Arsenal." I mean, people say different things on the streets of Lagos and even on social media. I mean, it's not just on the streets.
Well, actually, everywhere.
Yes. So if you use such words, it's sexual harassment. It is verbal in nature. We also have it in the physical form. So if you take it a step further to probably touch the person, hit them on the bum, she didn't ask for it, so there isn't consent. Now, I said she. People often feel it's only women who have been abused. Men are also abused. So sexual and gender-based violence, it's any form of abuse that is sexual in nature. It is without the person's consent.
Is sexual abuse and gender-based violence, is it the same thing?
No, they are not.
Okay, can you explain that,
Okay,
please?
so when we say gender-based violence, it's any form of violence that is carried out on an individual based on their gender, ethnicity, or maybe race at times. So when you talk about gender-based violence, you're talking about domestic violence, you're talking about rape, you're talking about marital or spousal rape, you're talking about child abuse or molestation, female genital mutilation, we have the child marriage, we have different forms of gender-based violence. These are just some examples. Now, when you say sexual, you're bringing it down to rape, right? That's having forceful sexual intercourse with an individual without the person's consent. You're making reference to sexual harassment. You're making reference to child molestation. Because an adult, you say it's rape. For a child, a minor, someone who's below the age of 18, it is sexual molestation or child abuse.
I see. So molestation is also rape, but for children.
Absolutely.
I see. And is it age specific?
Yes, a minor. I mean, yeah, we say below the age of 18. If the person isn't up to 18, then it's a minor. But for an adult, you can't say, I was molested. People use it. People use it a lot. We've had people say things like, the child was raped. But you can't rape a child because a child can't even give valid or informed consent. So when we talk about consent, we're referring to adults because as an adult, I know what it is that I want. I know whether I want to engage in that sexual activity or not. I understand the consequences of being sexually engaged, but for a child, he or she doesn't even have an understanding of what is being done to them because they are not informed about what it is. So only an adult can give valid and informed consent. And for a child, they can't give. And even for adults, I mean, in certain states, they can't give valid consent. So someone who's unconscious, for instance, can't give you valid consent. If
they've been drugged.
Drugged, exactly. So even if I say yes to that activity, I'm not in my right frame of mind. So whatever thing I say in that time is not valid.
I see. In your line of work, you've been doing this for a very long time. What is the percentage of what's the most common age of sexual and gender-based violence that you have seen?
Okay, so the youngest that I have seen in my line of work, I would say 6 months.
6 what?
That I have seen 6 months.
6?
Yes, 6
a
months.
6 months baby?
Yes, 6 months. I've heard of 3 months, but I didn't see. But the one I've had to engage with in my line of work, I would say 6 months.
6 months baby?
Absolutely.
Sexually molested?
Yes, please. Or defiled. Yes. 6 months. Yes. And the oldest is about 97.
Eh? 90 what?
97 years old woman.
97?
Yes. A grandmother.
My goodness.
Trust me, the statistics are alarming, and a lot of people still feel it's something people make up. We have people on social media who come out to say women make these things up just to bring down a public figure or to destroy that man's name, tarnish his image and all of that. But the truth is, every day, the least we see is about 3 cases a day. I mean, people are coming to report, and it's a good thing that a lot of people feel more comfortable speaking up now. Before now, I mean, people didn't really feel comfortable coming out to speak up. We talk about the stigmatization, the culture of silence. People blame and shame the survivor as opposed to calling out the perpetrator. But right now, we see a lot of young women and even parents or caregivers who feel comfortable seeking help in cases of abuse these days, as opposed to in the past where people just want to keep it calm. And again, it's because some people who even want to report don't even know the right ways to go about it. They don't know the channels to approach.
Wow. Can it be prevented? Because, a lot of parents say, this can't happen to my child. I have put the correct measures in place. I trust my staff. I trust their teachers. I trust the people I put in the responsibility of caregivers, domestic help. So how is it that these things are still happening when there's supposedly a lot of trusted people in these, in these people's social circles? So can this be prevented?
Well, I would say kudos to parents who are putting in the right measures to make sure that they protect their children. But the truth is, you can't say you completely trust everybody around you, because we've had cases where the father is the one abusing the child. I mean, I've had to deal with a case where the father raped the 2 daughters, had impregnated one twice, took her for an abortion. So it was the second time it happened that the girl spoke up. We've had cases where it's a religious leader, whether in the church or the mosque or something. I mean, we've seen a whole lot. We've had school teachers, we've had cousins, siblings who abuse. So you can't exactly say, oh, you've put in the right parameters so it won't happen to your child. It's good that you've taken measures, you've put measures in place to protect that child, but it's a continuous thing. I always advise that parents should start early to engage their children. Okay, a typical example I like to give is in the African context. So when a child breaks a dish, for instance, the parent comes and the first question is, why did you break that dish? So do you know how much I bought it? And before you know it, they're abusive on that child, they're all aggressive, right? They don't even ask to find out, hope you didn't get injured, right? Hope you're safe, okay? Now, when that child breaks another dish another day, I won't come to tell you that, Mom, I broke a dish, because I would recall how you reacted the first time. But imagine a parent who notices that, oh, okay, this child has broken a dish and goes, oh, sorry, Chichi, so hope you're safe, hope you didn't, I'm so sorry, okay, did you pack them well and all of that. Next time when I break something, I'll feel comfortable to come speak to you. But our parenting style in Africa is such that you're always raising your voice at your children, you don't have that rapport with them. So they feel, most cases that we even get, it's maybe a teacher in school or one auntie in the area who comes to report the case. And when you ask the child, why didn't you tell your mom? Oh, my mom will beat me. my mom will shout at me. My mom won't believe me. So parents should start early to have a rapport with their children. Start early to teach them these things. And we like to code a lot of things. Penis is penis, vagina is vagina. You have some children say, oh, uncle touched my pee-pee. What's pee-pee? So start early to teach them about their body parts. Let them know that some body parts are private to the other. Understand that uncle, whoever, no matter how close that relative is to the family, they don't have any right to touch you in a particular part of your body. And when it happens, know that I'm your mother, know that you can trust me, know that I'm your father, you can tell me anything. But if I have that mindset that my mom would always yell at me or she would always beat me, she won't be the first go-to person. Okay, so for parents, yes, it's good if you already have that measures in place to make sure that they are not abused. But try as much as possible to have that continuous fellowship with your child. Engage them, ask questions. Talk about their body parts. Let them know that at some point you would admire a boy. At some point you would look at a girl and see that a girl is beautiful in your class. Okay? These are what you should do, or these are the things that you should do about them, or you should come to me and let me know how I can help you with these feelings or when your hormones begin to change. But in this part of the world, we don't want to talk about sex. We don't want our children to tell us they are having feelings towards another person in school. So when it happens, they are just hiding and keeping things away from us because they're afraid that when they come to us, we probably won't believe them or would yell at them. So they rather keep it to themselves and not speak up.
It's interesting because sexual and gender-based violence happens everywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
But in Africa, primarily in Nigeria, it seems like some of these things happen because of the culture we have, because of our traditions, because of the way of life we have. And what you're saying is we need to start addressing what we consider to be the cultural norms.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, a child at a very young age says you can't question an adult. You can't speak up when an adult does something wrong. An adult can't apologize to a child. Okay, but if as a parent you have raised your children to know that regardless of the age of the person, you can respectfully ask questions. You can respectfully call their attention to something they are doing wrong. So my uncle is fondling my breast, for instance, because mommy says you cannot talk back at an adult. I can't let uncle know that what you're doing is wrong. And I'm not comfortable enough to go report uncle to mommy because mommy sees uncle as that reverend individual at home that is all perfect, can't do no wrong. We've had cases where we tell, and God forbid, it's not possible. Do you know who he is? He's a leader in our church. He does this. He helps widows. He helps the poor. And you come to say, even right there after the child has reported maybe through another trusted adult, and you invite the parents over for a conversation. You see the parents blindly defending this person because they feel it's not possible that my pastor in my church would abuse, or my imam that takes care of those children in the Islamic school would do this. But the truth is, strangers are not the people, from our statistics, people who are known to the survivors are mostly the abusers, are mostly the perpetrators. Uncles, aunties, school teachers, fathers, religious leaders. So it's not that random stranger on the streets who grabs you when you're walking in one lonely street late at night. No, it's usually people known to the family. And they take time to groom the child. Some of those perpetrators, they take time to groom the child. It starts with, oh, yawo me in Yoruba, meaning my wife, my wife.
I understand. Wife. To a child?
To a child, yes. They come visiting and the next thing they want the child to sit on their thighs and all of that. And, the child gets comfortable. Then that young girl who mommy has never looked at to say, oh, do you know you're so beautiful? Uncle is the first person telling her she's beautiful. In a way, he's building her self-esteem. She sees uncle as a person who admires her, who sees the best in her. And mom doesn't tell her that, her father doesn't tell her that. If uncle comes one day and invites her to his room, she won't as much as object because one, there's that trust. Uncle won't do anything to harm me. So she's comfortable enough to listen to uncle saying, auntie actually. I keep saying, the thing is, the statistic says 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 3 girls. So it's not that boys and men are not being abused, but we have more women and girls who are vulnerable to these things. Because they say we are the weaker vessels. We're not weak, we're very strong. But for the men, they won't come out to speak up. It's not so much with the men and the boys, but it doesn't mean that they're not being abused. But we have more women and girls who are being abused. That's why it feels as though I'm making reference to uncle.
So, okay, so I want to go to the support organizations because I know what WARF does, and I wonder, are there enough organizations? I know you had mentioned to me that the government does help. Can you tell me how the government helps? And can you tell me if there are many more organizations actually, trying to help these victims?
Well, kudos to Lagos State. They have done so much with regards to domestic violence, sexual and gender-based violence. The Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team, that's the DSBRT, they do so much around domestic violence, rape, child abuse, and all of that. And setting up the sexual offense court was also a good step.
There's a sexual offense court?
Yes, a special offense court where they handle cases of sexual and gender-based violence and all. So it's a good step in the right direction, but the truth is there's still a lot of work to be done. We still have a lot of work to do in the space. I mean, in Nigeria, I think we have about, I know we have about 30 sexual assault referral centers in 17 states in Nigeria. 30 sexual assault referral centers. So sexual assault referral centers are like a referral place where you can refer cases of sexual and gender-based violence to. So the way you can send someone who's sick to a hospital. Sexual violence, sexual assault referral centers are places where survivors of rape and sexual and gender-based violence are being treated. There they get to see medical doctors who check them medically, maybe run tests to find out if they've been affected by the perpetrator or if they are pregnant from the situation of abuse.
Well, you're saying there are 30 of them?
There are 30 of them.
Only
in
17 states
in Nigeria.
And there are 30, how many states?
We have over 36. The last time I checked, I think we're probably more right now.
So just over half the number of states we
Yes.
have, and there are 30.
Yes.
And in Lagos alone, we have how many people?
Let's not even start with the people. Let's look at the local government areas that we have. So in Lagos State, we have the DSBRT, we have some other centers. I think we have Mirabel and some other sexual assault referral centers. But the truth is, we have over 20 local government areas in Lagos State. I think over 21 in Lagos State, local government areas. And I mean, these cases are usually perpetrated in rural areas, rural communities. We're talking about Alimosho, Ikorodu, Ifakojaye, Abulegba.
No, but if you say that they're usually perpetrated in those rural areas, the people that live in Ikoyi, VI, and Lekki will think it doesn't happen.
No,
there.
it does. It happens in the urban areas as well, but it's more. I say it's more there because now we have like the market woman. She's out. The woman in that rural community. She's a market woman in one local market. She's out during the day. We have some street young boys who don't have anything they're doing. They're not in school. They don't have a job, and they're just there hanging around. We have that Mama Bisi's daughter who is not in school yet. Mama Bisi is in the market selling pepper or something. She's vulnerable to those boys on the street because they are not working. They don't have anywhere to go. In the Ikoyi, yes, it happens. I'm not saying that it's not happening in Ikoyi, but it's not as much as the rural communities. From our data, from the statistics that we have seen, it's usually from the rural communities because, I mean, Ikoyi, that's why I would have in such places, it's usually the school teacher, the school bus driver, maybe the gate man because the father is at work, the mother is also at work, so the child goes to school. So if it's not the school teacher, it's maybe the school bus driver.
That's
or
the perpetrator.
Yes, the perpetrator of the abuse, yes. So it's maybe the gate, the security person at home because mommy
Or the domestic help.
Or the domestic help.
Or in the cases of guys, the nanny.
The nanny. I mean, I've had male friends who say their first sexual experience was by a maid in their house or a cousin who came from the village for Christmas holiday and all.
So, not enough support.
Not enough. There's still a lot to be done. I mean,
how can we help?
Well, as an individual, I think you can start by lending your voice, and you can't lend your voice until you understand what it is you're speaking about. So I tell people that social media is everybody's friend. If you go on Google, you can read up about anything, everything you want to learn about. There are free courses you can take. So you can go online, read up what's even sexual and gender-based violence, what is rape, who's a minor, who's an adult, who's affected, what are the
sexual
statistics?
harassment?
What is sexual harassment?
Because yesterday you said to me, if a man says to a woman, you look sexy today, that's sexual harassment.
That's sexual harassment.
And my question to you was, are we not being a bit too politically correct there?
No. I mean, you can admire what I'm wearing without sexualizing me as an individual. So I can tell you that you look beautiful in that dress. That's insane. But if I start saying you look sexy in that dress, the word sexy is the problem.
Means that there's an ulterior motive.
Why sexy? Why not beautiful? Why not you look responsible in that dress? So a lot of things a lot of things we tolerate in our society. I mean, there are various harassments that we tolerate. I mean, that conductor who's raising his voice at you, or that woman who's raising her voice at the conductor, that's a form of harassment. You can make your point known to an individual without necessarily raising your voice. So when we say abuse, is anything that makes another person feel less of who they really are. Anything that feel uncomfortable.
I've heard instances of people in the bus, and say a woman is sat beside a man in the bus. The man is fondling the woman, but she can't do anything because she's in a cramped bus and the bus is in motion. And that seems to happen a lot.
Yes, it does. And you know something about that is we have people who won't even believe the woman. You'll be shocked that a good number of people in that bus or on that bus, including women, would start shouting at that woman, start yelling at her, say something like, I mean, this bus is already cramped. Why do you think, why would you say the man is touching you? Maybe it's the gallop, maybe something happened, maybe they pushed the man from the behind. But I'm the woman who's been touched. I know that this person standing behind me is harassing me by, using his groins or something to rest on me.
So what do we do in these situations? How do we begin to change the narrative? Because it is frustrating to hear all these things and feel like we can't really make a difference.
We can. We all can. Start first by learning, knowing what it is. Understand that you have a voice and you can use it. The truth is, if we allow everybody to shut us up, if you feel, because people won't believe me or they will shut me up, then the cycle continues. So if one person can break the silence, if I come up and say my story and say me too, and people look at me and say, oh, Chinemerem, really, you've been abused? If she can talk about it, then I can talk about my story. But if we allow people to hush us up, then the cycle continues. You saying your truth helps another young woman or young man to speak up. I mean, now we have men. Recently, the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team published some statistics, and over 80 men in Lagos State in the past 6 months says they've been abused by their wives. So toxic masculinity.
I think I remember seeing that, and there were mixed emotions, there were mixed feelings. I think a lot of people seem to laugh at the men who said that their wives have abused them. So how are the men going to talk when our society is? It goes back to this thing you're saying about culture. How does that man actually have the strength to actually say something?
You have to, and it goes from the family, how we are socialized as individual. You're giving birth to, and at home when you cry as a child, they tell you, don't cry, you're a man, you're a boy, don't cry, keep quiet. And that child grows up to conceal his emotion. He's on campus, he's going through stuff, he's going through things, and he can't own up to come out and tell even his male friends, that guy, I'm not finding this course easy and all of that. He conceals it. I have to man up, because as a child, I mean, I was told that I'm not supposed to cry as a baby. For women, we're more expressive. I can cry when I'm unhappy. I'm going through maybe my menstrual cycle. I'm having emotions running. I can let people know this is how I'm feeling. But for the men, they don't find it easy, and it's not something they learned as adults. It started as babies, as being that little child, that little boy who the mom says you can't cry. The father says, no, you have to be strong. You're a man. There's nothing wrong with showing emotion as a man. There's nothing wrong crying as a man. I mean, Jesus wept.
True.
So there's nothing wrong with crying, but I mean, it's just the way we've been socialized, that a man can't express how he feels. He would look like a weakling if he says he's been beaten by his wife. Speak up. Someday you're just going to die.
We always never have enough time.
Absolutely.
And we've run out of time. And for once, I'm actually quite grateful we have, because this is an extremely emotional topic for me. And what I want to know just before we round up is, what can we, the viewers, we at home, what can we begin to do differently today to make a difference? There are not enough organizations. How can we help?
So in your space as an individual, you want to start first by educating that young girl in your space, that little girl that you have around you. Let her know that it's okay to speak up. Talk to that young boy. Let him know that it's okay to express however it is he's feeling. Okay? And use your voice.
Use your voice.
Use your voice, basically. Speak about it. Don't shame the survivor or blame them. Listen to them and provide whatever supports that you can.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Chichi. Thank you so much for this. Use your voice.
Use your voice.
Use your voice. Thank you so much, Chichi. Right, so very, very in-depth conversation. not enough time. John, Helen, and myself will very quickly round up the show. So please stay with us. And I really, really hope we've learned something from this today. Thank you.